Hello, little sweetheart and little sweetheart's mom. This is Grandma, and I found this book up in our attic in a case full of children's books that we read all the time when your mom and your aunt were little, and it's one of my all time favorites. It's a very long book, so I'm going to break it into a couple of videos. But the name of the book is Gwinna, and I almost named our second dog after this book because I liked it so much, but it's just a little hard to say. So this is the story of Gwinna. There was a girl named Gwinna. This is her tale, as true as I know, true as I heard in the wind. If you have been to that land, you may know of Gwinna, for the people there remember her songs. They love to tell of the times she came to them. They'll show you a feather she left behind, or they'll show you a place where they saw her in the forest or in the sky. They say you need only to ask the owls, and they will send for her. But let me go to the very beginning of Gwynna's tale. It begins before she was born. Chapter 1, The Feather. Long ago, in a land of hills and valleys, there was a man and his wife. They lived on a hillside with the sky above and the village in the green valley below. The man was a woodworker. He made their house and everything in it, the table, the chairs, and the bed. He made a cradle, too, for the child they longed to have for their own. Yet moon after moon, summer, fall, winter, and spring, the cradle was empty. No child came. At last the woman said, "Let's go to the mother of the owls and ask for help." Now some in the village said the mother of the owls was an evil witch. Others said she was wise. The man asked his wife, "How can we know?" And she said to him, "One or the other, wicked or wise, she will have the magic we need." So, telling no one where they were going, the man and his wife went out the gate and down the road, down through the valley and deep into the forest. No one from the village saw them go. The forest was dim with mist. It wove in and out of tall columns of trees, in and out of tangled branches. Even in day it was dim as dusk, neither light nor dark. "It is owl light," whispered the man. The woman nodded. Yet if any owl flew in the mist, they did not hear it, for an owl's wings are silent. Nor did they hear any owl's voice till they came to a wall of great gray stone, hung with a curtain of ivory. The ivory covered an opening in the stone. A voice called out from within, "Who? Who?" The man stood where he was. "This is a woman's business," he said. He squeezed the hand of his wife to give her courage. But it was her longing for a child that made her brave. "I will speak for both of us," she said. Then she parted the ivy curtain, and it rustled closed again behind her. She found herself in a large grotto. The darkness smelled of rotting leaves, pungent and sweet. Somewhere water trickled out of the stone. The roof was open, and through the lacework of branches above, the dim light of the forest filtered down. "Ooh," said the voice again. There was an old crone sitting in a pool of silver light. She wore a great shawl of feathers. Her hair was spun of cobwebs and mist, catching the twigs and leaves she wore like an untidy crown. And though her face was dark with wrinkles, her eyes shone out like two full moons, midnight each in the center. "Who?" said the old crone once more. "Why do you come?" The woman made a deep curtsy. "Mother of owls, I come for a child of my own. Will you help me?" Slowly the old woman spread her arms to either side, parting her shawl like the wings of a great mother bird. "See," she said, "I have many children." Within the shawl the woman saw many animals. There were foxes, rabbits, and deer. There was a wolf and a bear. There were owls, of course, of every kind, and many other birds. They all flew out from under the shawl, twittering, chirping, and hooting. The other animals, too, came out from beneath the shawl. The wolf and the bear sniffed at the woman as they passed. Then they settled quietly with the others all around the grotto. "Even the stones are my children," said the mother of the owls. "If you wish to have a child of mine, you must give me a promise in return." Trembling, the woman said, "I will give anything." "Well then," said the mother of the owls, "as above, so it shall be below." She stood, and pulling a feather from her shawl, she held it high over her head. The feather seemed to gather a light into itself. Slowly the old woman pulled it down, and bending over, she touched the glowing tip of the feather to the ground. Then she swept something up from the earth and cradled it in her arms. The woman saw nothing there, but the mother of owls held it, gently rocking back and forth, touching it with the feather, crooning softly in words the woman did not understand. Then the mother of owls lifted what the woman could not see, and just as if it were a bird, she let it go. But the glowing feather was still in her hand. She held the feather out to the woman and said, "You will have a girl child. She will be like no other. But do not be afraid. Keep this feather always over her bed, for it is my blessing." There were 12 stripes on the feather, silver and white. "In this many years I will send for my child, and then you must let her go." The woman took the feather, and pressing it to her heart, she said, "I promise." Hand in hand, the man and his wife went back through the forest with light, hopeful steps. And sure as winter turns to spring, when they came home, they found a baby lying asleep in the cradle. What a lovely baby she was! The hair on her head was a coppery fuzz. Her tiny ears were perfect. When she opened her eyes, they were pale green and clear as water. She was a fine baby in every way, but for 2 dark spots upon her back, just below the shoulders. "They are only birthmarks," said the man. The woman held the baby close to her and wept for joy. Then they hung the feather over the cradle, and they called the baby Gwinna. Gwinna was a happy child. Soon she was taller than her papa's knee. He carved little wooden toys for her, and often when she played in the grass, the sparrows fluttered around her. Gwinna ran after them, reaching out to catch their songs out of the air with her fingers. Her laughter seemed to fly up and tumble down the hillside like small bells ringing. At night, even when there was no moon, the feather glowed over Gwinna's bed, and all was peaceful in the house and in the valley below. But as Gwinna grew, so did the 2 dark spots. Her mother worried. She rubbed the spots with healing balms, but soon they grew into nubs. She tried every remedy she knew, but the nubs grew until one day Gwinna's mother saw the start of 2 small wings. They were covered with soft gray down. But Gwinna's mother felt no joy to see them. She was afraid. She ran to her husband, and they worried together. "What if she tries to fly? We can never teach her. She will fall. She will be hurt. And if she flies away, then she will be lost." Gwynna's mother tore a snow-white cloth into ribbons. Then she wound them round and around, binding the downy winglets close to Gwynna's back. "Ribbons, ribbons, snow-white ribbons, keep my Gwynna safe," she said. No one in the village noticed the slight hump in Gwynna's back under her dress. The coppery curls of her hair fell over her shoulders. Even so, the people would not have noticed. They were so taken by Gwynna's face. "Even when she does not smile, she glows," they said. "And when she laughs, she sings." The village children loved to play with Gwinna. They ran with her in their bare feet, for Gwinna said, "Let's never wear shoes." They sat with her on the hillside, naming the shapes of the clouds. "Look, a hay cart." "No, it's a cow." "A lion." "A griffin." "A goose." They made silly tunes together, and then the children ran home to the village, flowers from the hillside woven in their hair. "Mamma, look," Gwynna said, holding out her skirt like a basket full of flowers. "I see your dirty feet," her mother said, "but I am glad to know they are safe on the ground." Gwynna looked at her feet and wondered, where else could they be? Her mother only kissed her and put the flowers in a bowl on the table. Oh, how Gwynna's mother hoped the ribbons would keep the wings from growing. But as Gwynna grew, so did the hump in her back. Then one day, when Gwynna's mother unwound the ribbons to change them, she saw the soft gray down was gone. There were new feathers, the colors of the earth. They were matted and dark as leaf mold. "Oh, my poor unlucky child," her mother cried. "What is wrong, Mamma?" Gwynna asked. "Do not look, my girl," her mother said to her. "There is nothing good to see." And she broke the looking glass. "But do not be afraid. I will keep you safe, and the wind shall never take you." She tore a fresh cloth into ribbons. Then she wound them round and round, crissing, crossing, front and back, under and over and all around, binding the wings to Gwynna's back, over her petticoat. "Mamma, it hurts," said Gwynna. "It is only the ribbons, snow-white ribbons, to keep my Gwynna safe," her mother said. Gwynna didn't dare to turn and look or touch as her mother tied the ribbons with a great knot. Then she took the feather down from Gwynna's bed. Gwynna reached out. "My feather!" "My darling girl," said her mother, "this is not a blessing, but a curse. I must use a magic of my own." But she would not let Gwynna see. Alone she went outside the house and dug a hole in the ground by the well. There she buried the feather. "What was above is now below," she said, and she set a heavy stone over the place. From that day, the bells of Gwynna's laughter hardly rang. Her face that glowed was pale. Seasons passed, and still the wings grew under the ribbons. Soon nothing could hide the hump of her back any more. People whispered, "Poor girl. She is stiff and bent as a little old crone." The village children tried to be kind, but they quickly looked away. Gwynna waited, wondering why they never came to play with her any more. But when she saw the shape of her own shadow, she looked away too. She climbed the hillside alone. There she sat, looking up at the clouds. Yet nothing eased the ache in her heart, and nothing eased the ache in her back under the ribbons. "It is a curse," she thought. "Mamma was right. Oh, wind, what will become of me?" The wind only ruffled her hair and dried the tears from her face. No one saw the tears at all, only a sparrow who sat on a branch by her knee, silent. Gwynna said sadly, "Where is your song, little sparrow?" How strange it was. She was so alone, yet all the land seemed to be sad with her. The spring was slow to come. There were not many wildflowers. The trees were hardly green before the leaves began turning brown. Even the grass was dull under Gwynna's feet. Every day when she went to the well with the bucket, she felt a chill in the ground that did not belong to summer. Soon, too soon, she would have to wear shoes again. Down in the village, people murmured, "The land is under a curse." No one dared to say the name of the mother of the owls, but at dusk they went out into the streets and beat upon pots and pans to keep the owls away. When the clamor came up the hillside, Gwynna's mother shivered and pulled the curtains closed. Then she held Gwynna close and rocked her gently in her arms before she said good night. Up in her room alone, Gwynna lifted the curtain from her window. She wanted to let the moonlight in. She wanted the clouds soaring in silence under and over the moon. What is it like, she wondered, to fly so high, so quiet and free? When the dark shape of an owl flew past her window without a sound, Gwynna felt a restless tingle under the ribbons. The ache in her shoulders grew so sharp she gasped. It is only the cold night wind, she thought, though everything was still. Then one day, Gwynna woke at dawn. She unlatched her window, and there, beyond the brown hills, beyond the end of the valley, she saw a mountain. Gwynna held her breath. She had never seen the mountain before, rising alone, high and dazzling white. The mountain was far away, far, far away, but she could still see a light on the icy peak, as if a spark from the rising sun came to rest there. Then the light grew and poured down the mountainsides. Gwynna saw it rushing toward her in a wind, blowing over the hills, swirling through the grasses, and tossing the tired trees, turning them all to green as it came. She heard the songs of 1,000 green summer leaves. Before her, the whole valley shimmered with light and rang with melodies. As Gwynna leaned out her window to hear, the wind rushed up the hillside, brushing the music into her ears as it passed up over the roof of the house and away. Then the green faded again from the trees and the hills. The valley was dull as before. But Gwynna still heard the music after the wind was gone. She felt it ringing inside her, just as a harp will ring, even after the harper's hands are still. She pulled on her dress and ran downstairs. Her mother was setting the morning bread on the table. Her father came to sit down. "Mama, Papa, did you hear it?" Gwynna's face shone as she tried to sing what she heard. Her own voice was too thin and small, but her father and mother smiled. "Where did you get that pretty tune?" they asked. "It came in the wind just now from the mountain." "What mountain can that be?" said her father. "There is no mountain here, only the hills." "But it is far away," said Gwynna. "Even on the clearest day, I have never seen a mountain," he said gently. "I think it must have been a cloud you saw." Gwynna ran to the open door. Clouds were always changing, but the mountain was still there. "See?" she said, pointing. They did not see it. Gwynna could hardly eat her bread and butter. Her father turned to his work shed. Her mother turned to the wash. "Come, my dear," she said, "come out of your lovely dream." So Gwynna went out to help her mother hang the wash on the line. Again and again she turned to look at the mountain as she worked. The higher the sun rose in the sky, the brighter the mountain was. At last, when the wind came again and the trees on the hillside swayed, Gwynna tugged on her mother's sleeve. Listen, Mama, do you hear it? Her mother stopped a moment. Then she smiled. I hear clean wash flapping in the breeze. It is music enough for me. And she took the wash tub back into the house. True, the aprons, trousers, dresses, and sheets were dancing gaily in the wind. But Gwynna heard something more. All around her were joyous tunes and leaves of lilting green. With every breath, the wind filled her, and such music and light she thought it would sweep her away. She wanted to go. If only she had wings like the birds, she would. She would fly wherever the wind might carry her, even as far as the sea. Yet when the wind blew over the hill and was gone, Gwynna's feet were still on the ground. And the song ringing inside her was so radiant and big, and Gwynna was so small, she felt as if she would break into 100 pieces. Then Gwynna did see a cloud. The sky was empty a moment before. Now she saw a white plume rising over the mountain. Slowly, the cloud gathered and grew into a graceful shape. Gwynna whispered its name, a harp. The cloud was a harp, great enough for the hands of the wind to play. A harp. Gwynna went to the edge of the hill, reaching out into the air, looking to touch the strings of the harp in the sky. If only she could play the song of the wind. If only she could play the music inside her. With a sigh, she let her hands fall as the harp of cloud drifted away, and the last bit of green faded against the trees. Then, as if the smallest breeze whispered it into her ear, Gwynna thought, there are harps here below, too. Small harps for people to play, harps made of wood. She ran into her father's work shed. There she found him joining a leg to a chair. The floor was covered with shavings. Papa, Gwynna said, Papa, please, will you make me a harp? Gwynna's father looked up. A harp? To build a harp takes a master's hand. He smiled at Gwynna a little sadly and said, you are young for a harp. You are too young for a harp. I am 12, Papa. Her father only laid his big hand upon her head. He loved his Gwynna dearly, so he made a stool for her instead. By supper time it was done. The stool had a pretty seat and 3 carved legs. Gwynna thanked her papa and sat on her new stool, trying with all her might not to cry. She loved him and her mamma, but they didn't hear the song she heard. They didn't see the mountain. As she sat with them by the fireside, she felt more alone than ever. Gwynna cried herself to sleep in her own bed in the dark. With tears sinking into her pillow, she tried to remember the song. Now she heard only a voice in the trees outside her window. All night long the voice called softly, softly like a small wooden flute. Hoo-hoo, hoo-hoo, hoo-hoo. And that's the end of part 1, I suspect. I hope you enjoyed part 1.